if you're going to build the next Twitter or Foursquare, you're going to need lots of databases and lots of rows, lots of complexity. How do you manage all that? How do you manage it on a cloud server or cloud infrastructure with all sorts of different server instances and database instances? Well, we're going to talk to Xeround about how to do that right now. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Razi. I was brought in to lead the company from our telco origins and move it into the cloud and serve these great new technologies for Web 2.0 companies in a need for a flexible database. So that's what I'm here for.
We're at the MySQL conference, O'Reilly's great conference. Why do we need your product? I thought the promise of the cloud, whether it's on Rackspace Cloud or Amazon, is you just click on a couple of icons and you get some server instances and you put MySQL down and you're good to go, right?
I wish that it was as simple as you say. Well, in fact, what we see and for what our customers are telling us, it's not as simple as it may look. In practice, you take a database, you run it, and you want it at the end of the day to make it highly available or to make it scalable. That may seem very simple in a very normal standard case in your private data center, but when you take it to the cloud and you try to stretch it and make it available for users worldwide, it doesn't seem as simple as it may be. Actually, it's not even doable. You're looking around at recent trends around NoSQL and SQL databases. Xeround is a SQL database end-to-end. We brought in our telco origins into the cloud, and now what we're doing is we're exposing the core capability of NoSQL underneath the hood, being able to stretch and handle large amounts of data and scale them wherever we need to scale them with the high availability built on top of it, and now offer it to any users running their MySQL applications running on the cloud. Typically in the cloud, users would see high availability issues. The cloud is not a highly available environment to begin with. I mean, put on top of it a database, which is the lowest part in the funnel that needs to be always highly available. As it turns out in life, that's not really the case.
Explain why. Because the promise of vendors like the one I work for, Rackspace, is the cloud's always available. It's always on, right? Unless something goes horribly wrong. But that doesn't happen very often anymore.
Yeah, technically on paper, that's the definition. In practical life, what we see is that virtual machines are there. When you run a virtual machine, when you launch it, actually Amazon will tell you when you take an RDS machine, for instance, that it take it for plain maintenance on a weekly basis for half an hour down. So if you have a database running, serving your whatever business that runs on Amazon, you would need to make multiple copies of this database instance and run multiple copies at the same time in order to support the downtime that they are planned, let alone the unplanned downtimes that every now and then hits the application. So scaling and high availability for regular EC2 instances or Rackspace instances or anybody else's instances would be very straightforward. That's a no-brainer. But when you take an instance and you build a database on top of it, and now try to make this database in multiple replicas and try to move data around between the replicas and scale them and stretch them as they move along, that's somewhere between totally undoable to very complex to do. And this is exactly where we step in.
Yeah. I had a customer who had a problem and they needed to reboot the machine. And when they did, the machine did a whole bunch of file checkings and stuff. It took hours to do. So if you only have one database server and you're not replicating it and not managing it, you can really get yourself into trouble, can't you?
Yep. So that's essentially the problem. I mean, people are running databases and then all of a sudden a peak hits and they get surprised. Wow, I didn't plan for it. I took an instance at Amazon. It was capable of handling this amount of transactions, this amount of users, and all of a sudden Christmas comes in, peak goes through the roof, the whole service goes down. Then they come back to Amazon and say, okay, now I want a larger one, a larger instance, and they take a larger instance, and it's a tedious work of moving things around from the smaller one to the larger one and maintaining the whole thing. And then when Christmas goes off, they need to go all the way back, let alone the high availability issues. So we take all of these hurdles away. We provide a database as a service. In a sense, it's like the movie Hakuna Matata. It's a worry-free philosophy. You get in, you get your username and password, you load in your schema, or you create your schema from scratch. It's very straightforward, super simple. Literally takes you about a minute to create a database and it be up and running in the air. And from this point on, high availability and scalability are not your worries anymore. underneath the hood, we have a very scalable database and infrastructure that handles the multiple machines and the multiple data stores around where they are. They could be in a single data center, they could be in multiple data centers. Actually, our cloud agnostic approach can enable you to run your databases in multiple cloud vendors at the same time. So we are a cloud agnostic, non-vendor sticky type of database as a service solution. So you can create a database in Amazon and then make a DRP copy in Rackspace and have a copy running in Europe and have a copy running in Latin America and sync them all at the same time, which would be extremely complex if at all doable, even if you wanted to focus on Amazon only or Rackspace only. So that's a very unique proposition.
What did you announce today here at the MySQL
Today,
conference?
the MySQL, we look at it as a big event for us. We see ourselves as part of the MySQL community, and we announced two major announcements. One of them is our auto-scaling capability, which is to what I described to you earlier. When peak comes in, if you weren't using Xeround, you would have to plan for it and buy machines ahead of time to accommodate it. If you're running on our service, there's nothing for you to plan for it because we take care of the scaling. It's kind of like an accordion. It would stretch and shrink depending on your needs and your traffic. And the other announcement which we made is our availability on Rackspace. We started off on Amazon East. Then our users told us, hey guys, why are you not in Europe? Because typically the application and the database needs to run in the same place. So we said, okay, here we come. A couple of months later, we released on Amazon in Europe. And now we released on Rackspace, and there's a bunch of others coming in down the line. So we would be available at any, like they say in any theater next door, we would be available on any cloud provider anywhere around the world. You'll be able to run your database.
Well, thanks for joining our cloud, because we're happy to have you. What does it look like when I want to have maybe a multi-data center database? I want to have my main database on Rackspace Cloud, but I want to have a backup on Amazon or a backup in some other data center at Rackspace. How can I set that up, and what does it look like on screen?
That looks as simple as it sounds. Basically, when you walk in to get into our GUI, when you drop down the drop list and it asks you where do you want your database to be created or imported, it gives you the list of options anywhere in the cloud, anywhere in the world. I should say cloud or cloud provider, it's kind of mix and match. You pick the cloud provider that you want, you pick the function that goes with it, whether you want replication there, you want distribution there, you want high availability, you click submit, and then from this point on, depending on the size of your data, if you're not already running on our service, this is the sheer limitation of nature to move the bytes from your store into our store, and from this point on, this is a done deal.
Yeah. Do you offer hybrid management, where I might have a database running on my own data center or on my own machines at Rackspace, for instance, and then I might have another one that's running in the cloud, whether it's on Amazon or Rackspace Cloud? Do you offer the ability to manage that,
yes,
that kind of infrastructure?
We currently don't offer it. We would offer it in a few months down the road. The idea behind it is that taking the cloud agnostic one step further means that the database as a service would run anywhere. So the cloud provider could be your local vSphere in your local private cloud, in your local house, or in your local data center. So frankly, as a user or us as a provider, we don't care where the database is. It could be on your local data center. You can have a copy in Amazon and a production running in Timbuktu somewhere else. God knows who's providing the service. And it's just about identifying the IPs where the cloud is running, and as simple as that. Very straightforward.
Do you help with memcached at all, or do you let somebody else do that, like Cloudera or something?
Essentially, we don't need any memcaching or any sharding mechanisms like many other vendors would use, due to the very simple reason that we run in memory. All of our database runs in memory. So essentially, caching that has been built to allow for read scalability and to allow for quick access to the database, we have already built into our genes. We come in from a telco environment serving hundreds of millions of users and transactions. So for us, robust, heavy duty OLTP ACID compliant, that's part of the game. I mean, for us, half an hour downtime on a weekly basis, we are not allowed to do in a telco environment for a whole year. So we know what it takes to run this type of environments. Essentially, at the end of the day, it's as simple as it sounds. I mean, it may sound too simple to be true, but our users, we have over 1,000 users now running our beta, and the feedback that we've been getting, it's so simple, it's so cool. How do you guys pull this trick? They don't believe what they see. They're really excited about it.
How do you get paid?
Currently, the beta runs for free.
Okay.
When we become GA, what's called generally available commercial version around the summertime, you would start paying us. Basically, the pricing model would be competitive or better than Amazon's. So essentially, when you sign into our database, all you need to care about is the database size. Initially, you can start from 0 or start from whatever you're bringing in. And then from this point on, you're paying per use. It's a pay-per-use model, so it's not pay per instance. So you're not bound or oversubscribed always beyond what you need. So you would be paying for your traffic. If your traffic is really low, you would pay really low. If your traffic is really high, you would pay more than that. It's like a sinus wave. At the end of the day, when you get an invoice at the end of the month, it would reflect what you used. So we would be charging you exactly for what you used.
Okay. Do you support OpenStack? Because now there's a community, not just Rackspace, but other competitors of Rackspace who are hosting clouds on an OpenStack infrastructure, and it would be fun to have a management system that could choose between those providers or even host internally.
We're working on supporting most public common interfaces out there, stacks out there. So interface is currently on our radar. We started exploring what are the issues there to have a support part of the stack. And naturally, like we've supported LAMP and other stacks, we would support OpenStack. We see it as a strategic partner going forward.
Okay. And what about internal, if a company wants to host its own cloud infrastructure inside its firewall, can you still manage that infrastructure, or are you just for the public clouds?
At this current point in time, we are aiming for public clouds, mostly public clouds. Essentially, the software we run, it's a software-only solution. That's part of the beauty. That's why we can claim for cloudification. But the software-only solution, which is database as a service, can run anywhere. I mentioned it earlier. So it's literally down the road, it's not on our radar now, but down the road, we would be able to sell it to private clouds running locally on their data center without us being part of the loop. So it'll be a downloadable software. You run it on your private cloud, and you'll be running it for your own databases. Actually, we have a few beta sites that are running our software in this type of manner, where we're doing it and using it for QA purposes and filling the water as an expansion slot for us. But for now, we want to have the reach and the geographical expansion cloud-wise.
What do architects need to know? Is there any way that they need to think differently when they start using your system versus just using Rackspace Cloud or Amazon Cloud?
No, there's nothing specifically to use us. Okay. Essentially, if your application uses MySQL, the only change you would need to do is to change the username, password, the credentials, and in your IP. And from this point on, it runs totally autonomously and transparently. If you are using sharding, mem caching, or any other caching technologies, essentially we would over time recommend to lose them, because you won't be needing them.
Interesting. Very cool. Well, thanks for telling me. Where do I learn more about it?
Everything is available on our site, www.xeround.com. We have a blog which is loaded with data. We have benchmarks, and we take the open web tool approach. Everything is out there in the open, white papers, technologies. We don't hide anything. Even our patents are out in the open. Okay. So we're very clear and straightforward on what is it that we do. You can go from a very simple GUI-based type of interaction all the way to heavy-duty command box, if this is what you choose, interaction with the database. We apply the whole spectrum.
Very cool. And you guys on Twitter as well?
We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on LinkedIn, we're all over the place.
And what about you personally?
Oh, the same.
What's your Twitter address?
Razi Sharir.
Okay, how do you spell that?
R-A-Z-I-S-H-A-R-I-R. Razi Sharir, my name.
Very cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, my pleasure.